냐제 쳔보도 닝미장 돈은 뭐는 쳔보 냐게다 나그러다는 잔도 쳔모도 tumbato jejanla ki shomsar nechen ror zer ngi jangam sa jawur tu ji shan yalaman jime banzo jala soran gon ge to ban por shinji lo gon ge to ban por shinji lo gon ge to ban por shinji lo.
Profound and subtle Dharma is rarely encountered in eons. Now we hear and follow it. May we realize the Tathagata's meaning. To liberate beings, please generate bodhicitta before teaching.
Next, we'll continue studying the Shurangama Sutra. When we study the Shurangama Sutra, everyone should gain some spiritual benefits, because the Shurangama Sutra is the teaching the Buddha gave to sentient beings when he was 62 years old, an extraordinarily profound method for enlightenment. Through this sutra, many great masters of the past have already achieved liberation. Now, due to the 5 degenerations of our time, whether our spiritual capacity is the same as those masters is hard to say, but regardless, with such a profound teaching, as long as each person has faith, they should surely gain something. The great masters who achieved realization through the Shurangama Sutra are actually very numerous. In the record of the transmission of the lamp, there was a Chan master from Hangzhou named Guisheng. He was at Thousand Light King Temple. He became a monk as a child. When he grew up, he began studying the Vinaya, studying sutras and shastras, later within the Tiantai school. He was a Chan master of Great Awakening. Later, he specialized in studying the Shurangama Sutra. When he first began studying it, the principles of the Shurangama Sutra were extremely profound. At first, it was rather difficult to understand. He continuously studied this sutra. Later, one time he was studying this sutra late into the night. Finally, he fell asleep in his reading chair. After falling asleep in his dream, there appeared a sun disk descending from the sky. As it descended, Chan Master Guisheng swallowed this sun disk. The next day, he had awakened. At that time, there should have been Chan Master Yongming. When Chan Master Yongming Yanshu was alive, he went there to have his awakening confirmed. Later, after living in the world for many years, as he approached his passing, he said, "All conditioned phenomena are illusory." Then various signs of rebirth in the Pure Land appeared, and he peacefully demonstrated his passing. So I think these great masters of the past who awakened through the Shurangama Sutra are truly countless. We should also say that encountering this sutra shows we are people with karmic connection and merit. So with our faith and our devotion, frequently reading the Shurangama Sutra, I think everyone's mind will have some new understanding. Also, if we don't read regularly, if we don't study regularly, I'm afraid that when we teach, everyone will seem to understand. But after a few years, it might become very unfamiliar again. If you were asked to teach, you might not be able to explain it then. So while studying this time, we should try our best to consult relevant commentaries. These we should also reference. We should also spend a certain amount of time putting effort into this sutra. I think every word and phrase can be remembered clearly. When we ourselves were young, the treatises we studied, if we put in a lot of effort at the time, we have confidence in ourselves. Some sutras and shastras that we worked very hard on at that time, up to now, after decades have passed, are still quite familiar. Some content and meaning clearly reappear. If at the time we didn't particularly strive reading other books, not placing this in the most important position, then such sutras and shastras now, not to mention after so many years, after just the second year, basically some content and phrases inside become vague and disappear. So I think everyone should seize the opportunity. Everyone should put aside many trivial matters. When encountering such treasure like sutras and shastras, we should study them very diligently. This should be necessary. Now let's continue today's teaching, because earlier, whether the 10 aspects of seeing nature, many Chan masters' outlines and analytical methods are like this. Of course, some individual Chan masters don't explain it much, but regardless, we previously refuted the deluded mind, and then in recognizing the true mind, we discussed 10 questions. Today we also begin discussing refuting delusion and touching the true mind. This principle, let's continue looking at the Sutra text for this principle. Ananda addressed the Buddha saying, "World-honored one, as the Buddha, the world-honored one, for us has explained causes and conditions and naturalness, various combinations and non-combinations. Our minds are still not opened." At this time, Venerable Ananda again began speaking to the Buddha. "You have spoken to us, those with the spiritual capacity of Shravakas and Pratyeka Buddhas, his companions. With them, or we, ordinary people, now can also be included. We are still so attached to substantial existence, so clinging. Although the Buddha has very compassionately already given teachings, already explained the Dharma of causes and conditions and naturalness. Just the day before yesterday, we discussed the principle of causation and also the principle of naturalness, and also various combinations and non-combinations. Actually, various combinations and non-combinations are almost the same as the previous content. This should also be discussed in other sutras and shastras. The Shurangama Sutra Orthodox commentary says various combinations are the characteristics of causal gathering and non-combinations are actually natural characteristics. Actually, this was discussed earlier, but this may be from different angles, different aspects that it has been explained. Although the Buddha patiently taught us these dharmas of causation and naturalness, etc., explaining such teachings very clearly, Ananda said, "My karma should be considered heavy. My mind is still not opened, but I still don't understand, because yesterday, what did we just finish discussing? When seeing sees, seeing is not seeing, and also seeing still transcends seeing, seeing cannot reach it." When principles like these were explained, Venerable Ananda should have become quite confused again. And now I hear more. Yes, this has already been said here. Originally everything was particularly unclear. Many principles were unclear, and today it has already been said here, I heard again. Heard what? Seeing sees, but not seeing. This increased my confusion. Today the Buddha again explained to us the principle of when seeing sees, seeing is not seeing. After this, the principle that seeing is not seeing greatly increased confusion. Originally, I was already confused enough. Then, on top of this, when the Buddha explains an even deeper principle, then we become even more layered with bewilderment, confusion, and feeling lost. Because Ananda at that time was indeed very excellent in terms of learning and wisdom, but rather poor in actual practice. As a result, he continuously couldn't understand, so he kept seeking and asking questions. Actually, I think Ananda was probably also someone who appeared not to be enlightened at the time and was also very close to the Buddha. It seems some Buddha biographies mention when the Buddha was 55 years old, Ananda became his attendant. And when Ananda became his attendant, Ananda was the Buddha's cousin. But at the very beginning, he wasn't very willing to be the Buddha's attendant. To avoid suspicion, he wasn't very willing. But later, many elders felt that Ananda was particularly suitable. So many respected elders and great masters continuously requested the Buddha to accept him as his attendant because of his wisdom, and his memory could be said to be completely superhuman memory. In this way, these great masters around him also wanted to preserve many future sutras of the Buddha, so they continuously requested the Buddha to accept Ananda as an attendant. After this, from the Buddha's 55th year to about 81 or 80 years old, for nearly 25 years, he served as attendant. During the Buddha's later years, Venerable Ananda was his attendant. For this reason, Ananda also remembered many sutras at that time. So this also has a certain interdependent origination. Before this, it should have been like Sunasatra Bhiksu and others who should have also served as attendants partially, but this situation may be quite complex. The accounts in various sutras are not consistent. Because Ananda appeared rather dull or didn't understand for this reason, he kept asking questions. I think if Ananda had awakened all at once, perhaps he wouldn't have asked questions later. If he hadn't asked questions, the Buddha might not have spoken. Actually, not only the Buddha, but many great masters in later history, because around them there were particularly capable disciples. Their sutra teachings and treatise commentaries could be seen by later generations, could be preserved. If the teacher is very remarkable, but the people around him all day long, besides fame, gain, and selfishness, have no thought for the teacher's activities, even if the teacher is a particularly remarkable scholar, treasure revealer, or enlightened being, what he leaves for future generations in terms of written works and spiritual wealth is very little. So I think perhaps Ananda had already awakened long ago, but before the Buddha, he always acted like someone who asked questions repeatedly, sometimes seeming to understand but not fully. Then he dared to. Ananda was particularly willing to make requests before the Buddha, and when making requests he didn't offend. In appearance, the Buddha wouldn't immediately scold him and refuse to teach him anymore. This wouldn't happen, because some sutras mention that among all the disciples, Ananda, in our terms today, had very good interpersonal relationships and high emotional intelligence. He could communicate particularly well with people of all different levels. His interpersonal relationships were exceptionally good, so perhaps Ananda had a kind of particularly superhuman wisdom. This wisdom sometimes appeared rather dull. In this way, the treasures in the Buddha's wisdom could be excavated. Sometimes he would also continuously be willing to make requests before the Buddha. At this time, he said, "I am now even more confused. I don't know what to do. I humbly wish for your great compassion. Bestow the great eye of wisdom. Reveal to us the awakened mind in its clarity and purity." Ananda once again made a request, praying that the greatly compassionate Buddha could give us a great Dharma offering, grant us the dual eyes of great wisdom, and reveal to us sentient beings this true original awareness, this original awakened clarity, luminous, rare, pure awareness. Could you directly awaken us? After saying this, having spoken thus with sorrowful tears, he prostrated, awaiting the sage's instruction. After Venerable Ananda said this, he began to weep very sorrowfully, with tears streaming down his face, crying while prostrating. Then he said, "Could the Buddha teach us such profound instructions? In this way, I am willing to accept and receive the sage's instruction." Sage's instruction generally refers to an emperor's edict in the past, but here it should refer to the greatly compassionate great Buddha, your Dharma instruction. Your teaching, I am willing to accept. So at that time, Ananda, because he appeared to be in great suffering, like a child encountering his mother when she doesn't give him milk, he cries very sadly while making requests. Finally, the compassionate mother cannot help but grant him what he needs. Then the Buddha also bestowed the Dharma milk of his most profound teachings, one by one, to Ananda and these other sentient beings. After he made this request, then the world-honored one, out of compassion for Ananda and all the great assembly, was about to expound the great Dharan, the various samadhis and wondrous paths of cultivation. It says here that at that time the Buddha saw Ananda's entire request, which was also particularly earnest. After this, he felt compassion for Venerable Ananda, as well as all these four groups of disciples present. Having compassion for them, the Buddha wanted to teach, to expound, to begin proclaiming. Proclaiming what? The great Dharan, the various samadhis and wondrous paths of cultivation. Actually, in the text that follows, many great Dharan mantras are mainly mentioned. These actually refer to the truth of reality here. That is to say, Dharan has the meaning of total retention and also the meaning of mantra. But this Dharan here is not merely a mantra. Actually, regarding Dharan, there are many syllable mantras, many syllable Dharans, one syllable Dharans, and wordless Dharans. Just like in the sutras, there is wordless prajna and one syllable prajna. One syllable prajna is the single prajna syllable a, just as explained here. This great dharan here actually refers to reality prajna. Below it discusses wordless dharan, which is prajna emptiness. And regarding the various samadhis, samadhi mainly refers to the Shurangama, samadhi king, and other samadhis. Actually, in some commentaries, for example, the eye faculties, samadhi through eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, and mind, then the samadhi of form objects through form, sound, smell, taste, touch, and mental objects, and also consciousness, samadhi such as eye consciousness through mind consciousness. The 6 realms, this kind of samadhi of the 6 realms also exists. There are also 25 types of dharmas, the 25 types of dharmas about to be discussed, and wondrous paths of cultivation are also what will be explained later. 55 kinds of wondrous bodhi cultivation principles, etc. But these actually are what the Buddha was preparing to explain in the following text, whether emptiness or meditation or the 6 perfections and myriad practices of cultivation. These principles will be explained. The Buddha wanted to explain these principles, so Venerable Ananda's crying was actually very effective. We can say it moved the Buddha's compassionate intent. Then the Buddha bestowed especially the profound principles explained in the Shurangama Sutra. Actually, Venerable Ananda's request is very much related. So on one hand, in the process of studying the Shurangama Sutra, everyone also knows the Buddha's great compassion, continuously teaching again and again, tirelessly, always like this. This is also a situation we should know. There's another point. Venerable Ananda, for us later generations, has very great kindness. If back then Venerable Ananda had not made such requests in the way it appeared in our world, the Buddha might not have taught so many dharmas. So actually we should have a grateful heart. One is for the Buddha leaving us beings of the 6 realms such excellent dharma, and another is that Venerable Ananda also indeed back then manifested various kinds of sometimes suffering, sometimes confusion, sometimes appearing to weep, manifesting various appearances. Through this he could move the Buddha's compassionate intent. Then from the ocean of his wisdom flows the sweet nectar of the Dharma. This is also for us later generations a particularly precious thing. At this time the Buddha told Ananda, although you have a strong memory, it only benefits your learning regarding shamatha and subtle contemplation. Your mind is still not clear. He says here that the Buddha told Ananda at the time, Ananda, although your memory is very good, you have this strong memory. Your memory is particularly excellent, super strong, but you only help with extensive learning your memory. Like this can only make you widely learned and erudite, because being widely learned and erudite, including when we debate or in the process of discussion with everyone, people with good memory can remember everything word for word. When our Dharma friends give presentations, I can see this too. Some people indeed have very good memory. The most crucial points, even if a joke is told in the middle, he also knows why such a word is mentioned here. For example, telling a story, or if there are some analogies in the middle, he completely knows why such a word is used, but some may be roughly what percentage and not that clear either. But regarding Ananda, indeed, his memory was also very good. Previously, in the Abhiniskramana Sutra, once Ananda went to the city to beg for alms. At that time, there were some Brahmin priests enjoying the shade under a big tree. At this time, they heard that among the Buddha's disciples, Venerable Ananda was foremost in learning. After this, they deliberately tested him, asking Venerable Ananda, "If your wisdom is very good, look at this tree above us. How many leaves are there? How many branches and leaves?" They asked him to say this. He just looked once at that time, then immediately said, "The eastern branches have this many, the western branches have this many, the south has this many, the north has this many." He separated all the branches into these numbers, then the total added up to how much. After he finished speaking, he left and went into the city. Then these Brahmins racked their brains and began counting. After counting, indeed, not one was wrong. After this, they also found it very rare, but wondering if he used some other method, they picked off some branches and hid them elsewhere. Then, when he returned, they asked Venerable Ananda again, "If you're really that capable, then tell us how many branches there are now." Then Venerable Ananda counted all the remaining branches at a glance and immediately counted them clearly. Then, after Ananda left, they began counting again. When they counted, there were no errors. Everyone developed immense faith in Ananda. Then they immediately followed him in going forth. Later, many of them attained arhat fruition. So Venerable Ananda indeed had particularly good memory. Of course, regarding what we call good memory, some people might wonder if this is a legend. I can't even remember. Why could Ananda remember? That's not necessarily so. Among people today, including in the 19th century at that time, there was someone called Tesla. His biography says his father showed him some book. Because of this connection, later he had photographic memory. All these principles were crystal clear. Because of this reason, later he invented alternating current, etc. And now there are electric cars named after him. Electric cars that are quite popular in cities now. Some people say that perhaps in the future, because oil is too expensive, electric cars might be a better choice. But some people also say, if buying a car now, you shouldn't buy one, because if you buy other gas-powered cars, who knows what they'll become in the future, might be difficult. And for electric cars, some technologies are not yet mature. I don't know why I added this in. Just mentioned Tesla earlier. At that time, it should have been Einstein. In their exchanges, he had particularly unique invention and memory abilities. Of course, the 19th century for human history indeed had a group of particularly remarkable scientists. They mainly were researchers of material aspects. Researchers of spiritual aspects might be in Tibetan Buddhism. There were some particularly remarkable great beings, including in Han Buddhism. There were also some, so people like them are not impossible to exist. Indeed, there are also some with particularly good memory. Now Venerable Ananda was told at the time, your memory and your extensive learning should be very good. But regarding shamatha and subtle contemplation, shamatha mainly is calm abiding. Subtle contemplation refers to special insight. There are two ways of explanation. The meaning is that although you are widely learned and erudite, your cultivation of calm abiding and special insight is insufficient, so you haven't realized the essence of mind. There is this way of explanation. There's also saying you have super good memory and extensive learning, but through this subtle, profound, mysterious way of contemplation, your cultivation of shamatha is still insufficient. Subtle contemplation is through one path, through this way. Contemplating this meditation is insufficient. The meaning is your study and contemplation are good, but your cultivation is not so good. What the Buddha meant at the time was, although your study and contemplation are not bad, your thinking is also quite diligent. You've heard a lot and remember well, but your cultivation is not particularly good. If cultivation is not good, your grasp of the Dharma meaning is also not very good, just as it says in the Ekottara Agama Sutra. Much recitation without benefit, this way is not wonderful. Reciting more also doesn't have much benefit. This conduct is not very wonderful. Like counting cattle heads, this is not essential for Shramanas, like a person who can count how many yaks there are. But actually, for him personally, this is not his property. For Shramanas, it's the same. Just having much learning is useless. You must go and actually practice. Zen often talks about describing food and counting treasures. Just being able to talk and count may not necessarily have very great benefit for one's own mind stream. So I think all of us present here indeed now studying the 5 great treatises and giving presentations in all aspects is still very good. But most crucially, can we apply the knowledge we've learned? To apply it without cultivation, it seems this wisdom cannot merge with one's mind. This is very crucial. So I have also always emphasized for decades, I've always required everyone to practice regarding cultivation like omniscient Longchen Rabjams. Finding comfort and ease in the nature of mind, 3 bases and 3 virtues cultivation method. This cultivation guide is very good. The other day we exchanged with a Khenpo from the Academic Affairs Department here at the monastery. He said this is very excellent because our guru Rinpoche at the time transmitted this lineage to us. Otherwise now it seems there are very few who have this lineage domestically and abroad. I said we have also practiced this Dharma for many years, this 3 bases and 3 virtues, because its stages and practice methods are very convenient. Each guide has preliminary, main and concluding practice methods, and how to practice each day, or how to practice for 3 days, or how to practice for 7 days. All this is explained very clearly. Such cultivation methods, I believe, will bring changes to many people's minds. Or the practical cultivation method of the words of my perfect teacher. We teach, that is, a guide to the words of my perfect teacher. practicing in such a way should bring benefits. Otherwise, everyone should also know, no matter what we do in this degenerate age, there's definitely no way to compare with Venerable Ananda's wisdom. But even Ananda, finally the Buddha also scolded him, "You are only a widely learned and erudite person." Actually, wide learning and erudition, for one's own mind stream to truly nourish it, is very, very difficult. In Tibetan Buddhism, we often speak of mastering dry words and phrases. What does this mean? These dry words and phrases are our own mind stream. His speech has no inspiring power, no persuasive power, just sounds like singing, melodious and pleasant, but truly ripened in the mind or merged with one's own mind. There's still 18,000 li to go. We can say this here too, everyone. Whatever you've heard, whether the preciousness of human life, cause and effect, or the impermanence of life, if you use these to seek your own mind nature, then of course that would be the best. Otherwise, especially those among us who may have attended university before graduate students, doctoral students, in this case there's always a kind of arrogance in one's mind stream. We often speak of intellectuals. These intellectuals may focus on the beauty of text or the elegance of words and phrases. Besides this, truly taming the mind or the principle of mind merging with Dharma may put relatively little effort. In this way, in a short human life, decades pass very quickly. In the end, I'm afraid even oneself, besides the seeds planted in one's mind stream, not to mention true liberation, even truly becoming a good practitioner, would be very difficult to say. So in this regard, everyone should also think carefully. Now listen attentively. I shall explain this to you in detail, and also enable all future beings with outflows to attain the fruit of Bodhi. Then the Buddha said, "Now listen very carefully and attentively. I will now begin to teach you separately and in great detail, whether through analogies or principles or through various forms of reasoning. I will use these methods to give you detailed instruction. Not only you, Ananda, but also many future beings with outflows, with greed, hatred, and ignorance. What we call having outflows means having bad habits. For example, drinking has the outflow of drinking, smoking has the outflow of smoking, greed has the outflow of greed, hatred has the outflow of hatred. Such ordinary beings with outflows, or those noble ones who haven't yet attained the ultimate fruition, so-called saints, all these beings with outflows, if I teach them well in the future, they will all attain the fruit of Bodhi. So we in the audience most likely are also beings with outflows. Each of us has our own many faults, because past life karma is different. Some may have the outflow of desire that is quite severe. Some people may have heavy afflictions of drowsiness. Some have heavy jealousy. Some, whatever is unwholesome, might be quite severe. But regardless, if we truly follow what the Buddha taught, either achieving complete elimination of afflictions or suppressing afflictions or reducing afflictions, etc., each person will surely have different benefits and ultimately will definitely attain the fruit of Bodhi. Next, it says, Ananda, all sentient beings cycle in the world. Ananda, Ananda. Like the Matang girl mentioned earlier, all sentient beings cycle in the world due to two kinds of inverted, discriminating false views arising right where they are, spinning according to their karma. Below, the Buddha begins to explain, Ananda, you should remember all sentient beings in the three realms within this cyclic world are all due to two kinds of inversions that begin to function. Discriminating false views, discriminating false appearances. After having these two kinds of inverted, discriminating delusions, they begin to arise right where they are, following their different ignorances, continuously taking rebirth in the six realms. There may be various ways to explain this, but the meaning is that rebirth begins right here and now, then spinning according to their karma, following one's own karmic power, continuously drifting and transmigrating. The power of karma is extremely strong. The collection of all virtues, leading to one goal, says, two forces are the greatest. Through karmic power, one enters birth and death. Through meditative power, one exits birth and death. I think this is very well said, because two forces are the greatest. One is karmic power. Because of karmic power, it causes us to enter the cycle of birth and death. And another is meditative power, the power of samadhi. The power of samadhi is also extremely great because with meditative power, one can exit the cycle of birth and death. Venerable Ananda lacks meditative power. We also have karmic power. The power of karma is truly very strong. Originally, what one wants in one's mind because of karmic manifestations, there's no way to resist it, no way at all. Because of these two kinds of discrimination, the two kinds of discrimination will be explained below. Because of this reason, they continuously transmigrate in samsara. Then below it says, what are these two views? Which two false views? First is the false view of sentient beings' individual karma. Second is the false view of sentient beings' shared karma. This is very important. One is sentient beings' false view. Actually, regarding false views, we have sentient beings' individual karma, each being's individual false view manifested by one's own karmic power. That's one. And sentient beings' shared karma, a false view manifested by collective karmic power. There are these two false views. Each of us now, will experience these two false views. Some have both, some experience only one. So sentient beings have individual karma and shared karma. Individual karma, what is it generally called? Within one's own 5 aggregate continuum, depending on special karma that one experiences. This kind of karma is called individual karma. Also, what we in Chinese regions often call retribution karma, manifested by one's own karmic retribution. Retribution karma, what is shared karma? Or same class karma. Shared karma, all sentient beings here, karma they collectively created that manifests. Like our container world or karma we collectively created. Chinese regions often call it basis karma, manifested depending on what kind of karma called basis karma. All these things. For example, all of us at Larungar monastics and lay people, the karma they collectively see, the world they collectively see, this is called shared karma. Then individual karma among everyone here. Some feel, wow, this is extremely joyful, like a pure land, while some people feel it's very painful here. Everywhere is suffering, everywhere they encounter troubles. So this is a kind of individual karma that is experienced by individual karma. So within this, actually, this principle, when we taught entering the way of the great vehicle, we also discussed some of this. Everyone should be clear. Below we discuss the results of these two karmas. What is called the false view of individual karma? Ananda, like worldly people whose eyes have red cataracts at night, they see lamplight with separate circular shadows of 5 colors overlapping. Below we first discuss individual karma, then shared karma. These two false views of individual karma and shared karma. First, what is the false view of sentient beings' individual karma? The Buddha told Ananda, for example, among worldly people, some people's eyes have red cataracts. Red cataracts are red-colored eye films. The eyes become red, and after becoming red, some obstructions appear inside. Then the eyes develop problems. After developing problems, at night they see lamplight with separate circular shadows. In the evening, around lamplight, butter lamps or candles we use for lighting above the lamp, they see separately such a circular light with 5 colors overlapping that can manifest circular light. Actually, this is because the eyes have problems. So this analogy, we're talking about individual sentient beings because their karma manifests. Actually, individual karma is not just one sentient being partial. Sentient beings' individual karma also exists. For example, if many of us get sick together, we can also say this is sentient beings' shared karma. We can also say this is compared to the larger group of sentient beings, their individual karma. We can say this. For example, now during the Ukrainian war, 500,000 refugees, actually, this is within the entire world, a kind of individual karma for them. But internally, among these 500,000, we can also say it's a kind of shared karma for them. Previously, this should be many years from now, probably less than 100 years. At that time, I heard Henan experienced a disaster. At that time, because of famine. During the famine, many locusts descended from the sky. Then some people saw an old grandfather continuously pouring locusts from a big bag for them. Regardless, it said throughout a considerable part of Henan, everywhere was like heavy snowfall 2 or 3 feet thick of locusts. The entire countryside was completely filled with locusts. Later, the farmers at that time, because all the fields were completely covered by locusts, all the grain was eaten up by them. Later, having no choice, the farmers began eating. The common people at that time ate locusts. When eating locusts, when those locusts were brought to their tables, they all turned into impure excrement. This was what many people at the time said was a relatively recognized fact. Many later historical records also document this. So these things, if we analyze with current theories, this is truly a kind of individual karma of sentient beings. Otherwise, it's impossible to have so many locusts descend. And the locusts, when they finally wanted to eat them, they all turned into impure excrement. This is a special karmic power before these sentient beings. So in the human world, some people find things delicious. Some people find them particularly unpalatable. Now, there are also some particularly strange sentient beings. Some eat glass fragments every day. After this, they can basically maintain life. Some people eat grass, eat stones. Now, in the world, there are many sentient beings with individual karmic manifestations. These are all individual karmic manifestations. Of course, here, the Buddha uses another kind of analogy, the karma of a person with an eye disease to analyze. He says here, having this. Then he asked Ananda, what do you think? This circular light appearing around the night lamp, is it the lamp's color or the seeing's color? He analyzes here. That person with eye cataracts just mentioned seeing circular light above the lamp. What is the meaning of this circular light? To analyze it, this circular light appearing around the night lamp, is it the lamp's color or the seeing's color? He asked Venerable Ananda, Ananda, if this were the lamp's color, then why don't those without cataracts see it the same way? But this circular shadow is seen only by those with cataracts. He analyzes here. When he analyzes first, he refutes that it is the lamp or color. This principle then below, he refutes neither lamp nor color. This principle first refuting both are both. The meaning is, first, if you think if at that time it's an individual manifestation, logically refuting it, we can refute sentient beings' individual karma. The meaning is like this. So he asked Ananda, you see around that night lamp, there's multicolored circular light. Is this circular light the lamp's form or the seeing's form? He asked Ananda. Ananda, if this were the lamp's color, then why don't those without cataracts see it the same way? But this circular shadow is seen only by those with cataracts. He said, if you say this is the lamp's form, the lamp's color. If it's the lamp's color, then people nearby can all see the lamp's color. Then those without cataracts. Those with cataracts are people with eye films. Those without eye films, why can't they see it when looking from the same position? But in fact, it's not like this, because this circular shadow, only those with eye cataracts can see it. So if you say this is lamp color, it seems illogical. If it were the seeing's color, since seeing has become color, what would you call the one with cataracts who sees this circular shadow? If you say this is not lamp color, but seeing color, the color of seeing, the form of seeing, if it's the form of seeing, then this is also unreasonable. How is it unreasonable? If it's seeing color, seeing has already become color. If seeing has already become form, then this person with eye cataracts nearby, seeing this circular shadow, how should this be explained? Because if it has become true form, actually this form, whether people with cataracts or without cataracts, as long as it's form, all can see it. But in fact, it's not like this either, because this form, this circular shadow you just mentioned, only people with eye cataracts can see. How can this be explained clearly? This definitely doesn't make sense. If it's truly form, then people with cataracts and people without cataracts should all be able to see it. So here it's equivalent to having a kind of the Buddha debating with Ananda, using a logical debating method to examine him. You say, seeing this form, is this form lamp color or seeing color? If it's lamp color, other people should also be able to see it if it's seeing color. Why can only people with cataracts see it? Why can't other people see it? When debating like this, the other party indeed has no way to continue. This was the both are just mentioned, whether it's lamp or seeing, both have been refuted. Because the circular shadow just mentioned is neither lamp nor seeing, this principle has already been refuted. Then below, neither lamp nor seeing, we need to refute these two opposing principles. Furthermore, Ananda, if this circular shadow exists separately from the lamp, then it should appear as circular shadows on screens, curtains, tables, and mats when viewed from the side. Below is the second method of analysis. If you say this circular shadow exists separately from this lamp, regardless of the lamp, there's another such circular shadow besides the lamp. If such a circular shadow exists, then you can say the observers, these people nearby, whether screens or mats or pillars or bottles or houses, among any of these circular shadows should also appear. Why? Because besides the lamp there are also circular shadows. If there are also circular shadows, then you're not depending on this lamp. When not depending on the lamp, then those other nearby things. Why don't they have circular shadows? They should, because you said there are some besides the lamp. In this way, everything besides the lamp is refuted, then existing separately from seeing. Then below, another method of analysis. If existing separately from seeing, it should not be an object of the eyes. How then does the person with cataracts see the circular shadow? If you say, besides seeing, that circular shadow just mentioned exists separately from the seeing of those with cataracts, then it should not be an object of the eyes, not what our eyes see. In that case, why do you say people with cataracts see this circular shadow? Because this circular shadow now doesn't depend on the eyes existing separately from seeing. If it exists separately from seeing, then it doesn't depend on our eye faculty. In that case, what's the relationship between diseased and healthy eye faculties? There's no relationship whatsoever. You shouldn't say only people with cataracts can see this circular shadow. This refutes both neither, the dual separation that is neither seeing nor lamp. These two principles have already been refuted. Below is like this. What is the reason for this? Below this principle is explained, therefore you should know, form truly exists in the lamp, but diseased seeing creates the shadow. Both shadow and seeing have cataracts, but seeing the cataract is not diseased. He reaches this conclusion below. So you should know, although this form is on the lamp, this real form, the lamp does have form, but there is this person with diseased seeing, whose eyes are diseased. This person sees this circular shadow because of the eye disease. What they see all has this circular shadow. In this way, whether the lamp's circular shadow or the seeing of those with cataracts, both of these have cataracts, both have this disease. This principle is quite clear. Although the lamp itself is normal because the eyes are diseased, circular shadows appear. In this way, both the perceiver and perceived are both contaminated, both diseased, then seeing the cataract is not diseased. Seeing the cataract is not diseased is a bit harder to understand. Some great masters explain it differently. For example, Chang Shui believes that this seeing this disease is actually not diseased. For example, if you've already seen this cataract, then it's not a disease anymore because the true nature of the cataract has been seen. Or like Jiao Guang and Wu Yi here, seeing refers to seeing nature. Regarding seeing nature, this is not diseased. If you truly see the nature, it's not diseased. The previous meaning is if you know this cataract, actually it's not diseased, something like this. There are specifically two different explanatory methods, slightly convoluted with the previous meaning. We can look at this passage because earlier it said both shadow and seeing are with cataracts. Eyanga means cataracts. So seeing cataracts, if you see the essence of cataracts, then actually it's not diseased. Or one who has seeing nature is without disease. Such a principle might be a bit better. So one should never say, when summarizing the principles above, we should never say this circular shadow just mentioned. We cannot say it's either lamp or seeing. This is the previous analysis. This is a summary. So what's the final conclusion? We can never say this circular shadow is a lamp, nor can we say it's seeing either. We can say neither lamp nor seeing. At the same time, in this, there is neither lamp nor seeing. This circular shadow, we also cannot say it's not lamp, not seeing. When we study Madhyamaka, everyone knows, according to some views of omniscient Longchen Rabjam, all phenomena of everything are like hairs in space, neither mind nor external objects. There is such a principle everyone should remember clearly, especially like some views of false aspect consciousness, only when teaching this way too. All appearances are like hairs in space. They are neither mind nor non-mind. All having such confused phenomena, but this fundamentally cannot be described. Similarly, before our sentient beings' uncommon karma, what appears is equivalent to things like circular shadows. If you say it's a lamp, you also cannot say, if you say it's seeing, you also cannot say the object lamp is a lamp, nor can you say it's one's own seeing. You also cannot say it's neither seeing nor lamp. Actually, none of the four extremes can be stated. If nothing can be stated, then where is this circular shadow? Actually, the circular shadow in essence is like flowers in space, fundamentally never established. So each of us personally experiences rather special karmic power afflictions that no one else has, or sufferings that no one else can experience. In this case, if analyzed logically, actually it's neither external objects nor one's own mind, like the second moon that appears, yet has no inherent nature. Regarding this second moon, you cannot say it's the moon, nor can you say it's not the moon. This principle will be explained below. This principle is very profound. So Master Uyi also said, entirely false, not a bit of real Dharma. All is false, not a bit of real Dharma. If there's not a bit of real Dharma, then you cannot say it's seeing, nor can you say it's not seeing. You cannot say it's a lamp, nor can you say it's not a lamp. Actually, nothing can be stated. Not only can nothing be stated, actually all phenomena transcend everything. This should be the deepest Madhyamaka analytical method, such analysis. People in our world now still quite like this, because it doesn't teach a religious principle that's hard to accept, but analyzes together with us face to face. When analyzing together this circular light I mentioned, you cannot say it's not a lamp, nor can you say it's a lamp. You cannot say it's seeing, nor not seeing. When stated like this, if we were before the Buddha, everyone think about it. Could we use another reason to be able to win the debate? It's still very difficult, as everyone knows. Below this principle is explained using the analogy of the moon. Like the second moon, neither body nor shadow. Like the second moon we see in empty space, actually it's not the moon's essence either, because a second moon is impossible, nor is it a shadow. Because if shadow is not the essence, another kind of shadow's reality could be established too. But actually this also cannot be stated. Why? Because the second observation is created by pressure. The second moon is not a shadow of the moon, but appears when our own eyes are pressed with fingers. All wise ones should not say, all wise people should not speak thus. This pressed source is form or not form, because we use fingers to press our own eyes. Wow, this moon has form, the moon doesn't have form. You cannot say this. You just created certain conditions by pressing your eyes once. Besides this, the moon's form also cannot be found. The moon's non-form, not the moon's form, also cannot be stated or obtained, apart from seeing and not seeing. You also cannot say simultaneously. From the perspective of seeing, earlier was from the object side. When you see the second moon, the moon's form and non-form as object also cannot be found. Then the subjective seeing that sees the second moon, you cannot say you can see the second moon apart from seeing, or you cannot say it's not seeing. You cannot say not seeing, nor can you say apart from seeing. My seeing has no relation. It seems to have relation. If there's relation, apart from seeing also cannot be found. Not apart also cannot be found. So observing the second moon, actually our sentient beings' uncommon karma. Now all the aspects of everything, all dharmas appearing depending on one's five aggregates, are exactly like the appearance of the second moon. Actually, the second moon's appearance has certain conditions, but these conditions have no relation to the moon. We always think, oh, there's really a moon, and a second moon appears. The second moon appears unmistakably before me. Then regarding this second moon, I go, oh, what's its color like? What's its shape like? What size is it? I continuously struggle or ponder its shape, color, or its movement, etc. Is this actually meaningful? It should be completely meaningless, because the second moon in its essence has never been formed and has never not been formed. Since it's not like this, then the subjective seeing that can see, it has also never been formed and has never not been formed. If we say it this way, actually it's just daydreaming or wishful thinking fundamentally without any basis. But we speak it out saying this second moon is such and such, then thinking the second moon is such and such, then seeing the second moon is such and such. Actually, these are all wishful thinking. So this principle should be understood. This is also like this. Below this meaning is all combined together. This is also like this, formed by eye cataracts. This is also that person with cataracts just mentioned caused by his cataracts. Now, who would you name as lamp or seeing? Much less distinguish it as not lamp, not seeing. When this final conclusion comes out, just like the analogy of the second moon above, it's completely understood. Now, if you want to think this circular light, if you say it's a lamp, that's also nonsense. If you say it's seeing, that's also nonsense. If these two cannot be established, much less. Saying you distinguish it as not lamp and not seeing. Not lamp and not seeing is even more distant from here, very distant. So through such an analogy, actually what manifests from sentient beings uncommon karma, whether individual suffering or happiness or these real things before you that others cannot experience, some objects that you yourself experience, this is completely like a person with cataracts nearby, what he manifests. Actually, in his analogy, cataracts are our sentient beings' uncommon karma. The eyes are like our mind nature. The mind nature doesn't see real things but sees something else instead. But what's the reason for this? It's that we ourselves have a kind of karma, like that person with cataracts. Just mentioned his disease, but once his disease is cured, it also doesn't exist. Or when he is experiencing his uncommon karmic power, if we analyze it, these appearances before him, through the analysis just mentioned of the circular light above the lamp, all can be completely analyzed. However, we sentient beings might not have time, or if even Ananda can't explain it clearly, sentient beings don't know exactly how. We'll continue with the rest later. Taking a little extra time doesn't matter. The second question, what is called shared false view? What was just discussed is called dependent karma. What is called sentient beings' shared karmic false view? This kind of false view manifested by shared karma. Ananda, in this Jambudvapa, excluding the great ocean waters in the middle flatlands, there are 3,000 continents. Below the Buddha again begins to give an analogy. For example, in Jambudvapa, excluding those saltwater great oceans, if we count the lands in between, there are approximately 3,000 great continents. Among the 3,000 continents, in the central great continent, spanning east to west, there are altogether 2,300 great countries. The remaining small continents in the various seas, among them, some have 200 or 300 countries. Some 1 or 2, up to 30, 40, or 50. What he says here can also be considered an analogy. If among such 3,000 continents there's one great continent in the center, this great continent, including the extent of east and west, has altogether 2,300 great countries. In ancient India at that time, many very small places were all considered countries like our present. Ganzi prefecture would have countless countries. For example, one county would be this country. That country below one mountain valley, there would be some kingdom, especially places like Gyalrong and Jinchuan in one county town. There are so many kingdoms, which King's Palace India was probably like this too. At that time, that ocean continent had 2,300. Then the other small continents in the great ocean, there are also many, 200 countries, 300 countries, and some have one country, 2 countries, up to 30 countries, 40 countries, 50 countries. Now in the world, there should be now generally recognized as 197 countries. 193 have already joined the United Nations. This seemed to be said the year before last. I don't know how it is now. Like Africa has 54 countries, Asia has 48. So it was also said at that time, if the world has so many countries, the Buddha said, Ananda, if again among these there's a small continent with only 2 countries, among these a small island continent has 2 countries inside now too, like the Atlantic, Oceania. Over there, Oceania has 16 countries. Among them, some countries are when going to New Zealand and Australia. At that time, some countries have only tens of thousands of people, including some countries in the Middle East too. Now they are also very, very small. Territory is also very small. People are also very few. I don't know about these 2 countries. They might also be small countries, only 2 countries. The people of only one country together experience bad conditions, but the people of one of these countries together experience a kind of bad karma for their country. This is called the shared karma mentioned earlier. Then the sentient beings of that small continent's land, all the local sentient beings of this continent, see all kinds of inauspicious circumstances. Everything they see are inauspicious signs, unlucky signs. What do they see? Or they see 2 suns, or they see 2 moons. Actually, last year, it seems in some cities around here, people also saw 2 moons, 2 suns. Many people took photos with their phones. Historically, there are also different accounts. Confucius said at that time, heaven has no 2 suns, people have no 2 kings. If 2 suns appear, it's also not very good. And also 2 kinds of moons. If they appear simultaneously in the sky, of course the second moon we create by pressing our eyes doesn't count. This happens often, any time. But besides this, if everyone in the sky can see truly 2 moons, this is also an unlucky thing. And even halos, coronas, arcs, and crescents. Regarding halos, coronas, arcs, and crescents, the Shurangama Sutra Finger Guide commentary says these are disaster signs related to the sun and moon, meaning around the sun and moon. Originally, solar halos around the sun, we say around the sun, looks very beautiful, but some are not very good either. There are such cases. And also some rather malevolent energy, malevolent air. This malevolent air has various colors. Some are black, some are blue, some are red. For example, if red appears, fires occur. If black appears, rainfall occurs, tsunamis. Or if blue appears, wind. So here, halos, coronas, arcs, and crescents mainly relate to things appearing around the sun and moon. In Tibetan, it says this kind of light appears like iron hooks. Possibly around the sun and moon, any kind of rather special light or clouds. These are also not very auspicious things. Then comets, meteors, shooting stars, and flows. Regarding comets, meteors, shooting stars, and flows mainly concerning stars, some commentaries explain each character separately. You can also look at them yourselves, including Master Ui's, and also the Shurangama Sutra Finger Guide commentary. These also explain them separately. This mainly concerns stars. Regarding stars, shooting stars, or what common people now call broom stars, and other kinds of stars, various comets. Some stars are very inauspicious. If shooting stars often appear like this, people all feel disasters might occur, inauspicious things might happen. Previously in our hometown, when the earthquake occurred at the beginning, they often felt shooting stars and comets were falling. Many elders said next year might not be auspicious. The second year, indeed, in the 70s, an earthquake occurred. Some who observe such natural signs are still quite accurate, and also minus ears, rainbows, and vapors, mainly disaster signs concerning yin and yang aspects. Here, rainbows and vapors are rainbows. Among rainbows, there are also some inauspicious ones. In our Tibetan region, there's a saying, wow, a rainbow appearing today is very good. But actually these rainbows and vapors, some are upward, some are downward. They hang downward like earrings. There are also different kinds of rainbows. Actually, regarding rainbows, some are also very inauspicious. Looking at history, the entire natural worlds, including some celestial and cloud phenomena, clouds, sky, including stars, sun, and moonlight phenomena. These signs, when disasters appear, when great changes occur, they often appear like this in the sky. All kinds of evil signs, all various evil signs. Actually, when seeing these evil signs, if it's a country, they should proactively have the entire country practice virtue, do life release, or do some great virtuous deeds. This is very important. Otherwise, when such things first appear, they can be changed through dependent origination. If you don't do this when disaster really strikes later, if you hurriedly rush around, it might be too late. All kinds of evil signs. But only this country sees them, so only this country sees them, while the sentient beings of that other country originally don't see them and also don't hear of them. Then weren't there two countries earlier? The people of the other country simply don't. Originally, both are neighbors. Logically speaking, they should be able to see. But this country's karmic power is different. This country doesn't have famine, war, disaster. They don't have these, so they simply don't see at all. So our current pandemic too, various prophets, various fortune tellers, all say different things. And they also say now, possibly some fortune tellers say, after May, that star will already be fine, so things should improve. But let's see, in June, whether the pandemic can actually improve. If it can improve, it shows these fortune tellers spoke quite accurately. If it still hasn't improved, is it that the meteor has returned or something? This needs analysis. But indeed, sentient beings shared karma. This country's shared karma, and then that other country, they neither see nor hear such inauspicious signs. So this country also doesn't experience any disasters. They live very happily. All right, that's all for today.
Kirgana jirano chukai chupun zolen droa droa sho
bandangara badna asadarda bandangara badna asadarda bandangara badna asadarda